This NBA offseason, all eyes have understandably gravitated towards the biggest names and biggest paydays such as Paul George signing with the 76ers, Stephen Curry landing a new deal with the Warriors, DeMar DeRozan landing with the Kings, and even Chris Paul joining Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio. But outside of those, there are also a number of comparatively smaller moves which deserve our attention. Because obviously in the NBA, the line between winning and losing can often be so thin, and most especially for contending teams, this line is usually defined by the type of high-level contributors that they are able to land to high-value contracts. So, as the free agent and trade markets have settled down and as we near a brand new season, I want to dive into four not quite household names but who have been signed to under-the-radar deals this offseason, who I think could end up as potential game changers for the teams that landed or re-signed them, especially in the playoff setting. So what's good everyone, it's Real Balls here, but before we continue, if you do happen to enjoy this video, please do me a favor by hitting that like button. It only takes a second of your time, but it will be much appreciated. So let's get to it. First player on my list is 6'7" wing Naji Marshall, who the Dallas Mavericks signed to a 3-year $27 million contract. Well sure, signing Marshall to this deal put Dallas in a hard cap in the lower luxury tax apron, but the thing is, re-signing Derrick Jones Jr. to a new contract using the non-tax mid-level exception would have done so either. And considering the Swiss Army knife type of versatility that Marshall has in his game, I think landing him for just around $9 million a year could really prove to be a steal for the Mavs. Well, obviously, outright replacing Derrick Jones with Naji Marshall might not work out as clean in practice because for one, Marshall would probably come off the bench with Jones' starting spot likely going to Klay Thompson. And for sure, Marshall lacks the above-the-rim bounce as a lob threat that Derrick Jones has. But even coming off the bench for this Dallas team, at 6'7" with a 7'1" wingspan, Marshall offers slightly more size and physicality on the perimeter than Jones, while also having more juice on the offensive end. Last season, while playing for the Pelicans, Marshall played 520 minutes less than Derrick Jones, but he actually logged 48 more drives to the basket, while also displaying much more comfort beating a closeout to get into the heart of the defense before making the next play, as Marshall actually averaged 3.7 assists per 36 minutes last season as a complementary playmaker for the Pelicans, while dropping more assists over the past 2 years than Derrick Jones ever had in his entire career. This should make Marshall a handy addition should the Mavs look to incorporate more dynamism and ball movement into their offense to complement the arrival of Klay Thompson. But perhaps more importantly, Marshall himself shot 40% on wide open threes in the regular season and 41% on wide open threes during the Pelicans' first round playoff exit, compared to Derrick Jones who only drained 35% of his wide open attempts from deep in Dallas. And I'm quite sure Marshall will see a lot more of those wide open looks playing with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving than he did playing with Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum. While on the other end of the floor, sure, Dallas might miss Derrick Jones' on-ball defense against quicker guards, but then looking at it, Marshall actually tallied a combined 4.2 steals plus deflections per 36 minutes last season, which is a little bit more than what Derrick Jones produced. Overall, I just feel like Marshall's more versatile game is a really tailor-made fit for the grimier aspects of the postseason, which makes him look like a perfect complementary piece next to Luka and Kyrie, and a solid fit for this Dallas Mavericks squad that used toughness, physicality, and versatility to take the Western Conference crown last season. Moving on, next player on the list is forward Caleb Martin, who the 76ers landed on a 4-year $35 million contract. Well, first of all, you know that Philly made a good signing when even the Miami Heat are dumbfounded by it. Well, Miami reportedly offered Martin a 5-year $65 million deal to stay with the team, which Martin declined, believing he could get a bigger deal in the free agent market. But that obviously didn't happen, and eventually he settled with Philly for a salary worth just more than $8 million per year. And I think this is a huge bargain for the 76ers, not just in relation to how badly Miami wanted to keep Martin, but also the fact that by signing him, Philly actually weakened a conference rival in the process. Well, looking at it, Caleb Martin actually nearly won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP award in 2023, averaging 19 points on 60, 49, and 88% shooting splits in Miami's 7-game series win over the Boston Celtics. He never replicated that effort last season, and honestly, he's only been a 35% three-point shooter the past 2 years, and ideally, you'd want a little bit more shooting at the wing next to Joel Embiid. But still, at the very least, Martin has proven he's a playoff type of guy who's capable of showing up in big big moments, and more importantly, he immediately fills a key need for the 76ers, whose depth at the power forward spot took a hit after Tobias Harris and Nick Batum left earlier this offseason, most especially after the team used the bulk of their cap space to add Paul George. Well, sure, at 6'5", Martin will be the second shortest guy in Philly's starting lineup, but the good thing is, he's got a ton of playoff experience guarding bigger opponents during his 3 seasons in Miami. During Miami's 2023 NBA Finals run, his most frequent defensive matchups were Jalen Brunson, Drew Holiday, and Jamal Murray, but he also guarded bigger wings like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And now in Philly, adding Martin to the starting lineup alongside Kelly Oubre, who's another versatile defender, should allow Nick Nurse to take the toughest defensive assignments off Paul George, utilizing him instead as more of a menace on the passing lanes, which should allow him to save his energy for shot-making duties on the offensive end. Well, overall, spending a combined $136 million for Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George for the upcoming season meant the 76ers didn't have much left for the rest of the roster. They retained Kelly Oubre, and they also signed Andre Drummond and Eric Gordon for a combined $16 million, but I think for Philly, nothing beats the value of adding a two-way forward in his prime like Caleb Martin for just around $8 million a year. Moving on, the third guy on the list is 6'3" guard Isaiah Joe, who the OKC Thunder re-signed to a 4-year, $48 million contract. Well, with presumably max extensions coming for young stars Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren by the summer of 2026, OKC needed to shift as much money as possible to this upcoming season, while Holmgren and Williams are still in bargain rookie contracts. And one way the Thunder accomplished this was by declining Isaiah Joe's team option for next season, and instead using full bird rights to re-sign him to a much larger contract extension. Well, sure, Joe wasn't even the highest priced and the most high-profile guy named Isaiah that OKC signed this summer, but keeping Joe for an average of $12 million a year looks like a massive steal, especially considering his contract has a decreasing structure and considering the last year of his deal is also a team option. But more importantly, this was just a fantastic piece of business for an OKC team whose offense was predicated in movement, floor spacing, and the ability to confuse defenses with inverted pick and rolls and guard-to-guard screen actions, which are all areas where Isaiah Joe actually thrives. His ability to set ghost screens and drain three-pointers on the move has always been crucial to OKC's attack. In fact, over the past 2 seasons, Joe shot 41.2% from deep on 9.5 attempts per 36 minutes, and within that span of time, only 4 other players, namely Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Dante DiVincenzo, and Sam Hauser, have been able to combine such three-point shooting volume and accuracy. Plus, among all players to drain at least 100 catch-and-shoot threes last season, only 5 players converted those shots at a higher clip than Isaiah Joe's 43.4% mark, and the list includes guys like Steph Curry, Paul George, and Kevin Durant. Overall, that kind of dead-eye shooting and off-ball spacing that Isaiah Joe brings just helps widen the driving lanes for superstar Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and number 2 option Jalen Williams, and just overall impacts OKC's offense so much, as OKC scored 123.4 points per 100 possessions with Joe on the floor last season, as opposed to just 118 points per 100 without him on the floor. This would have been the difference between OKC being the number 1 offensive team and them ranking number 10 in terms of offensive rating. Well, for sure, with the Thunder's increased depth on the wing with the addition of Alex Caruso as well as the emergence of incoming second-year guard Cason Wallace, Isaiah Joe might find it hard to regularly crack 20 minutes per game next season. But when you have the chance to lock down the prime of an elite shooter who just turned 25 years old and who I think is also underrated on the defensive end for what's projected to account for less than 7% of the salary cap in 2026, which is when expensive extensions for Chet Holmgren and J-Dub will be kicking in, it just makes a ton of sense for OKC to make this move, re-signing Joe to a long-term extension, coinciding to what are projected to be championship contention years for the OKC Thunder. Last player on my list is forward Jonathan Isaac, who the Orlando Magic inked to a 5-year deal worth $84 million. Well, sure, $84 million for a former 6th overall pick might not qualify as an under-the-radar signing to most people, but I think given how rarely we've seen Isaac healthy the last few years, wherein he only played a total of 78 games since the start of 2020, I think it's fair to say that this guy has largely operated beneath the attention of most fans, which is such a shame, because when Isaac is on the court, the dude is an absolute monster. In limited minutes last season, Isaac put up 15.5 points and 10.2 rebounds per 36 minutes while shooting a highly efficient 60% inside the arc and a solid 37% from the three-point line. But it's on the defensive end where he could be a total problem. Using his 6'10" frame, 7-foot wingspan, and ridiculous timing, per 36 minutes last season, he averaged 1.8 blocks, 1.7 steals, and 3.1 deflections. In addition, opponents shot just 52.7% at the rim when Isaac was the nearest defender, which was the 10th best defensive mark out of all 263 players to defend at the rim at least 100 times. But then, zoom out to the rest of the court and Isaac also held opponents to shoot 6% below their average shooting accuracy. This defensive difference is tied with 4-time DPOY Rudy Gobert as the second best in the NBA among all players to defend at least 300 shots last season. That is the kind of impact that Jonathan Isaac brings when he is on the floor, a level that only the best defenders in the NBA can reach. So without a doubt, if he was just healthier, this guy would definitely already be on a max contract. Instead, the Orlando Magic took advantage of the situation, landing Isaac to a brand new 5-year deal via a renegotiation of his salary for next season and an extension at the same time. Well, sure, the first year of his deal will have Isaac earning a huge $25.4 million for the upcoming 2025 season, which might look concerning because of his injury history. But then the good thing about the new contract is that his salary drops to just $15 million the following season in 2026, which is when Franz Wagner's max extension kicks in. And then subsequently, Isaac's salary will drop to just $14 million the season after in 2027, which is the time team star Paolo Banchero will be extension eligible. More importantly, the final 2 years of Isaac's contract are also fully unguaranteed and will only be guaranteed once Isaac is able to play at least 52 games the prior season, meaning if Isaac can't stay healthy during the 2027 season, the Magic can just drop him from his contract during the last 2 years. But imagine if he can stay healthy while maintaining the elite defensive level that he's at while hopefully becoming a more well-rounded offensive threat, then the Orlando Magic have just landed superstar level impact for a huge bargain. It's a calculated gamble given Isaac's history, but if it pays off, Isaac will be the perfect complementary piece for a defensive-oriented Magic team who's already got all-star level players in Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner and who's trying to make their first deep playoff run since having Dwight Howard. So thank you guys if you've actually made it this far into the video. Feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this is Real Balls, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.